Dear friends, welcome to another episode of The Informant. Today we're diving into a critical development. The United States has deployed a submarine and 2 nuclear aircraft carriers to the Persian Gulf. This is the largest U.S. military deployment since the Iraq War. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. The U.S. is ramping up its military presence in the Middle East in response to rising tensions in the region, particularly following the assassination of Hezbollah and Hamas leaders. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has ordered the deployment of the guided missile submarine USS Georgia and expedited the arrival of the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln to the area. On Sunday, August 11th, the U.S. Department of Defense urgently announced the deployment of another nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine and a second nuclear aircraft carrier to the Persian Gulf. With this additional deployment, the number of U.S. Navy warships in and around the Gulf could reach 25, a presence comparable to that mobilized for the Iraq invasion between March and May 2003. But what exactly are the naval and air assets of the U.S. Navy in that region, and how does this translate in defensive terms? For decades, the United States has maintained a strong military presence in the Persian Gulf, establishing a network of air and naval bases since the end of the Gulf War in 1991. This includes 4 major bases in Kuwait, a massive naval base in Bahrain supporting air and ground operations, 2 large bases in Qatar, 1 Air Force, and 1 Army, with Al Udeid Air Base being one of the largest in the world with over 10,000 personnel and nearly 120 aircraft, and 3 bases in the United Arab Emirates, 2 for the Navy and 1 for the Air Force. Additionally, there's Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, which, although not a U.S. base, is frequently used for support missions. Combining all these air, naval, and army bases, the U.S. military presence in the Gulf region typically includes around 20,000 personnel, 10 to 15 major warships, and 200 to 300 combat aircraft. This presence, as I mentioned earlier, has significantly increased, starting with the deployment of the nuclear aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt in July 2024, operating between the Gulf of Aden, off the coast of Yemen, the Arabian Sea, and the Gulf of Oman near the Strait of Hormuz, the gateway to the Persian Gulf. More recently, another nuclear submarine and a second nuclear aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, which was operating in the Pacific at the beginning of August, have been dispatched and are now speeding toward the Gulf. Regarding submarines specifically, we never know exactly how many are operating in a given area, but from time to time, the Pentagon highlights submarine deployments to signal an increased presence to adversaries. These submarines are incredibly lethal, capable of deterring enemy movements with just the suspicion of their presence. In the case of the reinforcement to the Persian Gulf, the deployed submarine belongs to the Ohio class, originally designed for launching long-range nuclear ballistic missiles. Of the 18 submarines built, 14 are armed with 20 Trident missile tubes, each carrying up to 12 nuclear warheads, with yields of up to 475 kilotons, meaning a single Ohio-class submarine can strike and destroy up to 240 different targets. However, 4 Ohio-class submarines have been converted into cruise missile submarines. In these submarines, the Trident missile tubes have been replaced with 22 tubes, each carrying 7 Tomahawk cruise missiles, giving each of these submarines a total strike force of 154 cruise missiles, each with a range of up to 1,000 miles, depending on the version. According to Pentagon reports, the nuclear submarine sent to the Gulf is an Ohio-class vessel converted for launching cruise missiles, with other sources indicating that at least one other nuclear submarine, likely a Los Angeles or Virginia-class fast attack submarine, is already operating in the Gulf. Ideal for closely tracking enemy submarines or surface ships, specialized websites monitoring warship deployments in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Red Sea also report a strong presence of warships, such as the USS Wasp, an amphibious assault ship that can operate as a mini-aircraft carrier, capable of deploying up to 20 F-35B fighter jets which can take off and land vertically or on short runways. With all these ships and submarines, the U.S. missile force, both offensive and defensive, has now reached the thousands. This massive U.S. naval presence in and around the Persian Gulf, as I mentioned earlier, is comparable to the deployments involved in the 2003 Iraq invasion. The U.S. is reinforcing its positions in the area to protect not only its own interests but also those of its closest allies. It remains unclear what Iran is planning, but the Iranians are being closely monitored for any indication of how and when they will respond to the assassination of Hamas and Hezbollah leaders. These actions are meant to demonstrate the U.S.'s commitment to defending Israel, and the deployment of U.S. military forces to the region is seen as an attempt to deter Iran and its allies from taking aggressive actions while the situation remains tense and uncertain. Stay tuned for more updates and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for the latest analyses and insights on the world's most pressing geopolitical issues.